How can this be? How can this be? How can this be in this country, in this city, so near to the graves of patriots who fought for freedom and for liberty in this country, in this place? How can this be? It surpasses any possibility of understanding. And yet it's so important for people to understand what this is. I was honored to be at the funeral of an amazing person yesterday. His name was Max Michelson. What did Max Michelson stand for? He was 91. He was a Holocaust survivor. Every day of the last years of his life, he spoke about the Holocaust, but not just that. He was one of the architects of the Jewish Family Service of Metro West effort to save and feed and help Syrian refugees. For him, that was the meaning of the Holocaust. To never forget the powerless, to never forget people who were oppressed. This is the story of the Jewish people. This is why we're here. In the book of Genesis, it says that God says of Abraham and Sarah, I have loved them because they will teach their children and their grandchildren to follow the way of God by doing justice and righteousness. Justice and righteousness. So what does this stand for? And what did we see over the weekend in Charlottesville? And what do we have to think about this? When we see those clownish figures in their Nazi uniforms, pretending to be human, pretending to be something more than they are, pretending to be important, it's important to remember what that represents. This reminds us. Mr. Michelson reminds us, Izzy reminds us of what this represents. It represents bodies stacked like cordwood. It represents 1.5 million dead children. It represents the ultimate outcome of evil. These things are not a joke. Taking them seriously is essential. Fighting hate and evil is essential. Our Bible tells us to choose life, not death. The word Nazi is the representation of death, not just for us, but for civilization, for humanity, for racial justice, for all the things that we value the most. And if we allow it to get by us without identifying it as evil, then we are culpable. And our future, and our children's future, and our grandchildren's future will all be compromised by our failure to speak up and stand up from the top to the bottom. So we have to ask, where is the Franklin Roosevelt who led our country against Nazism? Where is our president? Where is the condemnation of evil? So we must hear, and the president must hear, the voices from every patriot grave. It must hear the voices of those boys who died on Omaha Beach. It must hear the voices of every human being, millions and millions and millions, not just Jewish people, millions of people around the world who died at the hands of the Nazis, and say, this is an atrocity. This is atrocious. This needs to be condemned from the top of the country to the bottom. This is our task.